Hello, welcome to the sermon you're not getting this week. Today we're looking at Daniel chapter 7, verses 1 through 3 and 15 through 18. In the first year of King Belshazzar of Babylon, Daniel had a dream and visions of his head as he lay in bed. Then he wrote down the dream. I, Daniel, saw in my vision by night the four winds of heaven stirring up the great sea, and four great beasts came up out of the sea, different from one another. As for me, Daniel, my spirit was troubled within me, and the visions of my head terrified me. I approached one of the attendants to ask him the truth concerning all this. So he said that he would disclose to me the interpretation of the matter. As for these four great beasts, four kings shall arise out of the earth, but the holy ones of the Most High shall receive the kingdom and possess the kingdom forever, forever and ever. So, the book of Daniel has kind of two major parts. The first half is the stories that we all know and love about Daniel, the fiery furnace, the lion's den, things like that. The second half of Daniel, we get a bunch of these sort of vision sequences. Now, most historical scholars believe that Daniel was actually written long after the events that it describes, because there's a very accurate map of history leading up to pretty much a particular moment, and I think 184 BCE. Where just all the visions that are described in Daniel map pretty specifically to these things. The idea being this was someone in that time writing sort of the visionary history of what had come before, and pointing out that all of these things, these horrible, terrible things that are happening in our world, all of these powers and kingdoms and empires that are rising and falling and throwing people all over the place, this is all part of this long vision of God. And God sees all of this, knows all of this is happening. This is all happening within this sort of spiritual realm, but God promises that God's people will remain safe and secure despite it all. And this must have been a pretty astounding thing to hear, especially these last verses. There's going to be four kings that will rise up, but the holy ones of the Most High will possess the kingdom forever. That must be very encouraging, and it's hard for us to wrap our heads around exactly how encouraging that would sound. I imagine the poorest people in the country, right? The people who the government never seems to help them, and neither did big corporations, and they're always just sort of living a few steps away from the grave, right? They hardly ever have enough food. Imagine the most poor, destitute people that you can imagine in the country. Imagine them hearing, but you will possess the kingdom. You will possess this land. This land ultimately belongs to you. And you will possess it forever. That would be astounding and kind of unthinkable. Something that could only be a promise that comes from God. But also, it might be hard to see how that plays out, right? How do we actually get to possess this kingdom? And it's not really clear how this is supposed to look, how this is supposed to work. But what we can say is there's a certain hopeful defiance that lies at the heart of this, that says, you poor people who are caught between feuding empires, who are often caught in the crossfire between wars, in wars between vain kings who are only after their own self-aggrandizement, who are only trying to show how powerful and strong they are, who will never back down from a challenge because it's never their lives that are on the line. You poor people who are caught in the middle of this, you will possess the kingdom forever. This is promised to you. Now, we might have an interesting Christian interpretation of the paradox of a kingless kingdom. I mean, look at this right here. It says these four kings will arise, but the kingdom will be possessed by the holy ones of God forever. The implication is it's not the kings that are possessing the kingdom. What is this kingdom? It's not theirs. And we could talk about how this is sort of almost a political theory, right? What does it mean for a kingdom to not be possessed by a king but by the people? It might mean something like democracy, right? It's a flattening of the hierarchy in which all of us have a place at the table, in which there's no king to rule us, but we all uh, govern ourselves and look after one another. And that sounds great, but perhaps we could have another person to fit the mold of this kingless kingdom. Maybe just not a king as we would like to imagine one, right? The answer is obvious. A king whose crown is made of thorns, a king whose throne is a sepulchre bench in a garden tomb. Our king, the king of this kingless kingdom, is Jesus. He's not here in a way that we recognize. His power is projected through his sacrifice, through his body and blood being given up for the salvation of his people. His power is projected through his word, through words spoken 2,000 years ago that echo on forever. It's a different kind of king, a king that we have faith in, that we trust in, even when we don't see his armies take the field. But maybe that is how it should be. Certainly, we as Christians would believe that. But I almost wonder if that's not what we all hope for a king to be governed by one who is not here to show how powerful he is, how strong he is, how always right, never back down he is, but a king who gives himself up for his own people. A king who doesn't act like a king, the king of a kingless kingdom. This is our promised future. Now, certainly Jesus is our king, and he is our proper ruler forever. He is our authority unto the end of time. But that's an authority that I can get behind. An authority that loves each and every one of us, from the lowest to the highest. An authority that is willing to give up his own life to save his people. We don't really see that in the kingdoms of the world. That's not something that normal human leaders do. That's what sets God apart from our world. God understands what it truly means to wield power with love. We're always, especially in our day and age right now, politics is often a big discussion. And whatever side of the political spectrum you happen to fall on, I hope that when we see this, when we look at this, we remember that our King is Jesus. And any ruler who ought to hold authority over us ought to look a lot like Jesus, as much as they possibly can. This is the standard to which we hold each other to. Obviously, we'll all fail. We'll all need grace. We'll all need forgiveness and love and welcoming back. But we shouldn't want to be ruled by a king who acts like a king. We should look to Jesus as our example and treat each other, especially when we have positions of authority over one another, treat each other not as if we were kings, but as if we were willing to give everything up for our love for one another. That would be a kingdom worth living in. And that is our promised inheritance. Thanks be to God. Amen.